the big news coming in, senior military level talks between India and China today, and all issues including Galwan Valley and Pangong So will be discussed. The talks are taking place in Moldo, which is the Chinese side of Chushul. Well, let's go across to NDTV's defense editor Vishnu Som for more on this. Vishnu, what can you tell us?
Well, these are very important talks. The second time since the 6th of June that we've seen talks at the level of Lieutenant General. In other words, Corps Commander. These, as you mentioned, are being held in Moldo, which is the Chinese side of Chushul. Usually the way it works is that whichever side calls the meeting has that meeting on their side. So this would possibly be a request by the Chinese to have this talk. There have been a series of talks at other levels, including talks by Major Generals, particularly to sort out the crisis in Galwan, the release of our men. However, at this particular stage, the talks which are taking place in Moldo are going to be looking at the entire process of disengagement that was entirely stalled. But as you mentioned, they will also be looking at the issue of Finger 4 on the Pangong Lake area. That's a large stretch of territory, several kilometers, where the Chinese have intruded and are sitting and are going nowhere. They would also look at the Galwan Valley situation and all other areas. So these talks are very important as far as disengagement is concerned. But what is absolutely clear, and our sources telling us, is that as far as the rules of engagement are concerned, the Indian Army has been told, local commanders on the ground, to adopt a robust posture. In other words, if there is this pushing, shoving sort of situation which has happened in the past, then they need to take a call and a decision, and if they need to escalate at that level, they can. So that's something that's gone down the rank and file. It has been conveyed, and that's an important decision which will affect the way in which the Indian Army operates across the line of actual control, not just in the Ladakh area, but in Sikkim, the middle sector, which is more or less settled, and in Arunachal Pradesh as well along the McMahon line.
Right, Vishnu, and these talks coming at a time when there's obviously a lot of anger on both sides of the LAC. There's been a buildup of troops, and since the 15th, since that clash, that violent clash in which 20 Indian soldiers were killed, there have been no other sort of skirmishes breaking out. But there's been a buildup of troops and a lot of tension at the LAC. So these high-level talks coming in the midst of that.
So, Gargi, we don't want to talk about the build-up of troops on our side. I don't think we should talk about operational, movement of soldiers that gets into a territory which is difficult to report on. But yes, as far as the Chinese are concerned, there has been a movement, a significant movement, a build-up of forces. That's not necessarily taken place in just the last few days. It's been going on for a while. As you are aware, we've seen that build-up of Chinese forces in the Galwan Valley well before this incident took place. We've seen the build-up of Chinese forces and physical intrusions in the Pangong Lake area, in the Finger 4 to Finger 8 stretch. There are reports of this having taken place elsewhere as well, perhaps just across the line of control in the Hot Springs area as well. But I think when you talk about build-up, it's important to stress that a build-up doesn't necessarily need to be on our territory. If the Chinese are able to deploy tanks and artillery and soldiers in very large numbers just on their side, then as and when it is required, it is possible for them to move these soldiers forward to take up positions against the Indian Army. I think it's fair to say, and we've been saying this for a while, that the Indian Army is fully cognizant of what the Chinese are doing, and therefore anything we are doing in terms of moving our men and our equipment has already been done, and if it's being enhanced, it is just to ensure that all areas are well covered.